Tech Sideline is presented by First Bank and Trust Company, the bank that puts you first. They can meet your banking and financing needs for personal, agricultural, business, commercial, mortgages, and so much more. Visit firstbank.com to learn more.
We're here to recap the 2026 Virginia Tech football spring game on episode 482 of the Tech Sideline podcast, which starts right now. We're recording on Monday, April 20th, 2026 from the Tech Solutions studio in the Virginia Tech Corporate Research Center. Today's episode is brought to you by Christine Shepard. If you're watching on YouTube, make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and refer the show to a friend. I'm your host, Riley Klaus, and today I'm joined to my left by lead analyst and columnist Chris Coleman. Across the way, our managing editor, David Cunningham, and to my right, senior staff writer, Andy Bitter. Producing the show behind the scenes, as always, is Mr. Nick Brown. Now, before we start talking about the spring game, we do need to talk about what did occur before the spring game, which is an unfortunate event where a skydiver slammed into the video board at Lane Stadium. He was later identified as Pasha Palanker. He has been reported to be in stable condition, and the Blacksburg Volunteer Fire Department was on the scene. But what was everyone's brains going through when this unpredictable event goes down?
Well, I didn't actually see it. I was in a suite, and I was texting somebody, and all of a sudden everything got really, really quiet. And I looked up, and I saw the American flag just falling down. And I'm like, what in the world is going on? And then I looked up slightly and just saw him hanging there. And then I looked around and realized that everybody else was seeing the same thing that I was seeing. So I didn't see it when it happened live. The perspective was interesting because they tried the first ladder and it didn't work. And we were up in the 6th floor of the east stand. So we had the highest perspective you could possibly get, I think. And we could see them bringing all the wrestling mats and a lot of stuff from like the donuts that they use for football for guys to tackle. They were bringing all of that out underneath.
Anything somewhat inflatable.
Exactly. So I thought after the first ladder wasn't high enough and they started bringing this other stuff out, I thought they were going to have to make the dude like unhook himself and just do a free fall.
Like his Lethal Weapon or something like that.
Something like that. So fortunately,
I can't imagine that was ever the plan.
I wouldn't
I think it was
so.
just in case.
Right.
I mean, people don't realize, like, first of all, we were in the press box. And the first guy came over the top of the press box. He came in hot. Like, it came in, like, very steep, and then he pulled up at the last second. And, like, I don't know anything about skydiving, and I never really have a desire to do it, and certainly not now. I don't want to do it now. But that first guy, like, landed very hard on the field. It's like, oh, that was, I don't know, little extra steam on that one. And then I wasn't really paying attention to the rest of the guys. I just assumed they would land, and they hear this like, oh, from the crowd, and you look up and it's hanging from the screen like that. But I think from where everybody was looking in the field, you see him up on the scoreboard there, and it's above the bleachers, but you're like, oh, that's not that far to get to the bleachers. But that scoreboard is not connected to the stadium. It's across a road behind it. And I went outside and I took a picture of it. I mean, it's like 100-foot drop from the top of that thing to the road. And there's a fence there that's got like spikes on it too. I mean, it could have been very, very bad on this whole thing. And I know, you tweet out pictures of that stuff, and social media is like Showtime at the Apollo. Everybody just starts cracking jokes about every single thing. It's like, this is a very serious situation as it was happening. And that guy was in danger if his chute didn't catch on that thing. It could have been a really tragic situation. Now that we know he's fine here, I feel comfortable. Now I can joke about this thing because it's the most unbelievable thing I've ever seen at a spring game or will ever see at a spring game. But
hopefully,
I would imagine. But it was crazy that it happened and that they got him down.
He is Palanker. He's a retired U.S. Army Special Operations Master Sergeant who served 17 years. He's a 2-time Purple Heart recipient and was awarded a Bronze Star with Valor for confronting and stopping a suicide bomber, which saved the lives of 17 fellow soldiers. So he's seen a lot. I don't think he probably had this on his bingo card. Thankfully, the E and the C and the H in Virginia Tech on the top of this video board caught him. And I drove by Lane yesterday and the parachute was still up there.
There's no reason to take it down because that scoreboard's coming down soon.
New and inventive ways to demolish the old scoreboard before they replace it.
Well, so they're going to have a new scoreboard by the time of the first game in September. But I think they will get the parachute down before graduation.
I
Well,
think
they need it for graduation.
I've
the
heard
scoreboard,
they're
yeah.
actually, since that scoreboard is still up and still usable, and I guess we'll use for graduation, Tech's going to get an insurance payout for the broken parts of the scoreboard.
Wow.
And then they're going to dismantle the scoreboard. Isn't that see?
Whit
It's all
Babcock
working
is
out well
winning
for everyone
on this
yeah.
whole thing.
Yeah.
I mean, he was the third one through. The second guy bailed completely on the
And
field,
landed on
landed
the
on the
practice
practice field. And you see some of the, there are a lot of good videos from the stands because people obviously want to take videos of these guys coming down. And people show him and he's kind of hovering above the scoreboard the whole time. You could tell something wasn't right. Like he was caught up in the wind and he couldn't really direct it too much. But then it's just like so slowly sort of drifted to is like, is he going to hit that thing? I think he's going to hit that thing. And sure enough, I mean, he hit it hard
slammed
too.
it.
I have the most unique perspective anybody can have on this because I happen to know a really, really top-notch skydiver who's made hundreds of jumps and has skydived over the pyramids, right? She took me skydiving for
She
the first time.
avoided the pyramids.
Yeah, she avoided
okay.
the pyramids. She said, just watch the video. First of all, she said, the guy's made over 700 jumps in his life. And
Yeah.
first of all, the first thing she tells me is 700 jumps isn't actually that many. So this is her perspective. Okay.
That's a matter of relativity. I
Relativity,
mean, like,
correct,
yeah,
correct.
700 is a lot
Right,
for
right,
somebody
right.
who's never jumped out of a plane.
Correct. But she said, just watch the video. He should have bailed out way sooner. One of the top rules of skydiving is don't hang out over anything you don't want to land on and choose early. The first one was smart, though, and bailed appropriately. Always better to be safe. He wasn't decisive in his decision making.
Well, he had the additional challenge of he's got an American flag draped to him, like
Correct.
a huge. I mean, it's not like a minor one. It's
Right.
like this enormous flag that I have to imagine the wind is affecting that whole thing coming down.
No doubt.
I also think it's difficult when half the field is crowded by
Right.
people waiting
They
for
got the Corps
Sandman.
cadets lined up out there, so it's really like a small window that you can land on. And maybe that's why the second guy is just like, nope, this ain't happening today.
Yep.
It is funny. This is the second Virginia Tech scoreboard that's been damaged because that Stanford guy hit a home run that put a hole in the
E and the
baseball.
C.
That'd be funny if this is just like a bit that like the Virginia Tech scoreboards is like the drummer from Spinal Tap or something like that keeps blowing up. It's like it keeps hitting the Tech part of the scoreboard and ruining it.
I was at the baseball games this weekend, and I told Will, I said, I'm going to be interested to see if the E and the C are fixed by next baseball season, because that baseball scoreboard hasn't worked all year. Like they get the wrong. At one point they have, here's your batting average, and then the guy's got 8 homers and 0 RBIs, and then sometimes they'll bring in a new pitcher and his ERA is 0.00, and they'll calculate his ERA for the game as opposed to his whole season stats. It's just it's been that way the whole year. Anyway. So Tech's having a lot of scoreboard problems this year, some of which is self-inflicted, some of which is not.
Well, I'll say this: like most spring games are unremarkable, and this one is going to be like, okay, that 2026 Virginia Tech one, I'm going to remember that one. That stands out among all the other ones I've ever been to.
Yeah.
I'm just surprised. I mean, the fact that he escaped with no serious injuries. I mean, you said he had his left arm in a sling.
Yeah, I walked by him outside. He had his arm in a sling and didn't look happy. I can't imagine. I can't imagine you get off of that. There's not some degree of embarrassment. I mean, he hung up there. First of all, they said they got him down in 15 minutes.
No.
It was like
No, it was more
30.
like
It was
30.
about, it was about
30.
20, 25 minutes.
Yeah, we took pictures of the whole thing and like timestamps on it. So it was 20, 25, 30, something like that. But like you're up there, and even if you might be fine, your arm probably hurts like hell because you slammed into the thing. But then you're also just like hanging there in front of a crowd of people, and I'm sure we'll touch on the attendance later in the podcast. A crowd of people sitting there watching him. It's like you can't really go anywhere. There's probably a degree of embarrassment, just like that's the last thing you want to do. And well, maybe not the last thing you want to do as a skydiver, but one of the things you probably don't want to do is slam into something and be hanging there in front of everybody for 30 minutes.
I thought the funniest thing was Mark Berman went down like to talk to people down there on the ground and asked Palanker twice because there was a chance he might be concussed. Asked him twice for an interview request, and he denied both interview requests.
Berman was very territorial about it. It's like, Berman, who was it? He's like, I might read it in the story tomorrow. I'm like, first of all, we could tell who it is. He kind of looked like Nacho Varga from Better Call Saul, if anybody watches that show. But we identified him on the site. We're like, Berman, it's not a big secret. We know who this guy is.
I've got a shirt from the second time I went skydiving, and it's got the name of the company on the front, and on the back it says, everything will be all right. Maybe. or everything will be all right, probably, or something like that. I almost wore that today. I probably
So did you go solo or was it a tandem jump?
tandem. Yeah,
Okay.
you have to go through a special training program
was
to do
gonna
it
say.
solo. Yeah.
And you didn't hit anything.
Well,
on
no,
the way
but didn't
down.
hit anything. But so we were going up. Like I was in one group, and you know, it was a small plane, so you only like 3 or 4 people could go at a time. So the group before me, I look up, and one of them's chute didn't work, so they had to deploy the reserve chute. And sure enough, it was the guy I ended up jumping with.
That would have been enough for me to just be like, I'm out.
Oh
Like,
no, the plane was so small. Like I was sitting in the front and the door was wide open and I had my back to the cockpit basically, and the pilot was like sometimes elbowing me in the head when he was changing instruments and everything like that. And there was duct tape at certain spots in
Where'd you
the
do
plane
this?
outside Richmond, at West Point.
Okay.
Right
Yeah,
above,
yeah,
like
yeah.
you could see all the way down the York River to the
Absolutely.
Chesapeake Bay. But I couldn't wait to jump out of that plane. Actually, when I saw the strings and the duct tape kind of holding stuff together in there.
it's just like,
Okay.
if something goes wrong, like, you know, pavement is undefeated. Like, you're not winning that battle at any point. And it's interesting because, like, I went to, I mentioned this in my 5 thoughts afterwards. I went to Normandy 2 summers ago in St. Mary Glees, and that was the place. And this is in the movie, The Longest Day, which is, you know, my era of World War II movies is like Saving Private Ryan and the Band of Brothers and stuff. But The Longest Day was 1962, and everybody on our trip, more retirees on our trip, they're like, oh yeah, we saw that. And the guy gets caught on the church steeple. There were actually 2 that got caught in the church steeple, but, you know, one immortalized in the movie. So I was there in that town, and they have a mock paratrooper that's stuck on the roof. And so I took pictures with it. I'm like, it's going to be the most interesting skydiving detail that I can offer for people. And that is no longer true because I have something that trumps it now with this spring game event.
Have you seen The Longest Day?
I haven't.
It's a good movie. Yeah.
I've been meaning to watch that since everybody, I mean, there were so many references to it on that trip about, oh, this is where this was, and this is where this was, but I have not seen it yet.
Yeah, it's a good movie. Do you still have a DVD player?
I've got
it on DVD.
I've got a
somewhere.
PlayStation.
I've
I've got a
like
PlayStation in the
$1 bin,
garage,
so that's
so
true.
yeah, I could probably make it work.
I have a DVD player if you need one. 4:02 was the time the game officially kicked off, so about an hour, 2 minutes after. I mean, this is a couple different times now in Lane Stadium. You count the Purdue weather delay a couple years ago, the longest weather delay in college football history, where just like very like just strange long periods of time where like talking to, it was funny, like Franklin was talking about it after the game, and yeah, you know, we had a couple hour weather delay at West Virginia before. It's like, okay, was it 7 hours?
Get out of
Like,
here. Come on.
Yeah.
Child's play.
You could go home and take a nap and then come back. Yeah.
Right.
But just something. They of course, for the players and coaches turned it into a positive as far as like, how can we learn from this, and like you've got to rewarm back up and get back into rhythm and be mentally there. So it was interesting to just kind of talk to some of the players and coaches about it, because it was an hour before they turned on Enter Sandman and ran, you know, Johnny Cash, our church, Enter Sandman, ran back out of the tunnel again.
I know they're trying to make it an event. Do you need skydivers at the spring game?
I bet we never have skydivers ever
seems
again.
like-
I bet there's a lot of athletic departments and a lot of professional teams out there, and probably a couple of insurance companies who are doing new math today.
Some guy got caught up on the camera zip lines last year, I think it was. I think I saw a video of that. It's
I
like,
think it was a bowl game.
yeah, there's just like a lot of stuff on the
Yeah,
field,
there's a
and
lot of
people
moving
like there's
parts.
just a potential for a lot to go wrong.
What's the
Is
point?
it worth it?
No,
I mean, it's
it's
kind of
not.
cool. It's a spectacle.
Hey, I
but
thought the funniest thing was the art but make it sports account.
That's
took,
right, I
Took
got
your
that-
photo.
got it
Oh
there.
wow, did they really? I love
Yes,
that account.
it was
people credit photos on Twitter. That's
the art,
interesting.
but Make It Sports does.
I know,
your
thank-
photo,
thank
and
them for
also spliced it together with at the Seattle Mariners and Texas Rangers game. They had
It's like a
hot dogs
drop.
coming out of the parachute, but there were a couple hot dogs that got like the parachute got caught coming down. So it's not a great day for parachutes, whether a hot dog or actual person.
Well, we are thankful that Palanker is stable, and as you guys talked about, eventually the game did occur. Andy, you mentioned there was a crowd. How do you think the crowd, stayed there for that time, but also the number of people that showed up?
Oh God, I knew you were going to do this. I probably thought it was the high 30s, close to 40. And Franklin afterwards, like, I'm told it's the largest crowd in Virginia Tech spring game history.
I don't believe it was.
No, it's not. Like, first of all, I went up and looked this up, and Chris, from your story in 2016, you were the only one who mentioned the attendance. Virginia Tech announced an attendance of 44.7.
How do you come up with that?
Yeah, first of all, I don't believe that number in the slightest.
Right.
Like, absolutely not. But could it have been like mid 30s, high 30s? Sure.
You generally take away 5,000 to 7,000 is what I've always said of whatever they reported actually is.
And like, even where you look at, like, I think the west side, the stands there were packed. Mm-hmm. And there was a good crowd in the student section, the other, decent showing in the other ones, but they were not like shoulder to shoulder.
Right.
You get 65,000 when everybody's wedged in there like sardines, not like it is with the spring game when you're spread out. So I think it was like high 30s, maybe 40. I could get behind that, which is a great crowd. Like, don't be upset about that crowd. But like, if I'm being overly pedantic on this, it's because like words matter in journalism. So when you say it's the largest crowd ever, it's like, I don't think it was, but just say it was a good crowd. It was a good crowd. Great showing.
Yeah.
Good job, everyone.
Mm-hmm. I mean,
kudos to that.
I think the weather certainly helped.
Oh, beautiful.
One of the best spring game weekend weather wise, I think we've had in a really long time.
Certainly better than last year. When it was horribly freezing.
Well, they've had
cold.
a couple bad weather ones. They got rained out that one
the
time.
Thunderstorm, I hadn't even made it to the stadium yet. I was almost at the gate to go into the stadium, and boom.
Yeah, it's always a bummer because you like to get people on campus and enjoying themselves. I mean, I thought it was like...
And then it was another year, maybe 14 or 15, where it just poured down rain.
Yeah.
Poured rain. And I guess I went into the game, but like, you didn't even want to leave like under your tent at the tailgate because it wasn't just raining, it was like pouring.
Yeah, so good crowd, good showing, good weather. I thought it was a good event. Yeah, minus the skydiver.
Yeah.
I mean, that was interesting.
Yeah.
We go into it, it's like, hey, nothing going to be flashy on this. It's like, well, if I'd known there was going to be a skydiving accident pregame, maybe I would have written it that way.
I realized afterwards, Riley, we should have tried to do like a buy or sell for the spring game.
Oh man, yeah.
But nobody would have bought.
I don't know
buy
if I
or
would've
sell
bought that.
pregame skydiving incident. Sell,
season long buy or sell skydivers this year in Lane Stadium. I'll sell.
Yeah.
Well, then on the field, the two teams were the white team and the maroon team. The white team defeated the maroon 30-21. That in itself, was that surprising a little bit?
It really seemed like when you looked at the rosters that the maroon had a fairly substantial
They had like
advantage.
95% of the starters on maroon.
What we project to be the starters.
I think I said double-digit favorites pregame. You said what, 13 and a half?
13 and a half is what I
and
put
I responded, it's like, I hope you didn't bet it.
Yep.
I don't know what you could, plus...
Well, I remember
Well, it skewed a little bit because Grunkemeyer didn't. He only
didn't
played
play
a
the second half, yeah. So that makes it a little bit tough. I remember the first spring game I went to was 1999, and it was first team versus second team, and then the third team were kind of spread out amongst both teams. But in that game, they actually spotted the backups 14 points. So it started out 14 white, 0 maroon, and then maroon still ended up winning because they
I've
were
seen
the
some
starters.
formats like that. I mean, it wasn't. They had so many guys rolling in with subs. I don't think it was too especially telling that the white team won that game. Plus, they had the convoluted scoring system was like they get points for punting at halftime, at certain hang time.
Well, and to be fair, they
finished
kicking,
the
kicking at
game.
the
Then
end,
afterwards, they're like, "We're gonna just do field goals now." It's like, does this count in the points? It feels like we're done.
Both teams went 3 for 4.
I know.
So it was a wash.
It was weird to add that on at the end.
Yeah, maroon got 2 points for punting. White got 1. So. It's very, very interesting. But yeah, because Grunkemeyer didn't play, he only played a half. I think that kind of skews it. But like you look on paper, like you go down the list, every single player, they gave us an injury list before the game of all the guys who were going to be out, and every single player on that list was on the white team. And the white team, like you look, most of the guys we project to be in the 2 deep are on the maroon team, and the white team won. But I think part of that is like Troy Hune, the backup quarterback on the maroon team, got a little bit rattled. He was sacked 6 times, and
he looked like a guy who should still be in high school, which he should be. I mean, he enrolled early, graduated early, and I think that comes with the timing. And I think it's just sort of a lesson, like pump the brakes on what you hear out of. Oh, they went in the scrimmage in the stadium in the first week, and he threw for 4 touchdowns. It was almost perfect. It's like, okay, was there a pass rush? What situations were they put him in? I think it's obviously a developmental position. He's going to take time to develop and grow into that, and that's not going to be indicative of what he'll be like as a player. But sometimes you get that with young players getting out there for the first time.
You mentioned, although limited, we did see some of Ethan Grunkemeyer. What did you see from him in that action?
I thought he was good. I thought obviously the one interception was a miscommunication, and they talked about that. I didn't see what Franklin did after the play, but somebody up in the box told me that Franklin immediately went up to Heath after the play.
Quick.
And so it kind of seemed like Franklin thought it was the wide receiver's fault, and he cut off his route, and that caused the interception. But, overall, I thought he was good. 8 yards per attempt, which would have ranked, I believe, in a tie for 33rd nationally last year. And I think your midpoint, or at least for last year, your midpoint yards per attempt for a quarterback is 7.2. And so Grunkemeyer being at 8 yards per attempt is a good sign. Hune was actually at 8 yards per attempt as well. So when he did get rid of the ball, he did damage down the field. So I thought Grunkemeyer was very efficient and showed the ability to complete passes down the field. I think his second pass of the game, when he threw that seam route to Luke Reynolds,
You mean like he's kind of turned and caught it?
Yeah, right up the seam, and that's indicative of the type of pass we had talked about that he was capable of throwing. There are past Tech quarterbacks who probably wouldn't even have thrown that because they didn't trust themselves to complete it. But I think he's an advanced passer who's going to trust himself to make those plays, and he's got a tight end that can obviously help him make those plays.
Yeah, I think you look at the first drive right off the bat. He's 5 for 5, 67 yards, I think. 3 of those passes to Luke Reynolds, 1 to Aiden Green, then the 13-yard touchdown to Quayshawn Brown. That's how you draw it up. And, you're not going to come out and run the ball a whole lot in the spring game, as you can see from the stats that they had. Other than a couple of Overton runs, they didn't do too much there. But, I thought he looked sharp. Put the accurate ball, 13 for 17 on the day. Didn't hit the ground a ton. And I think coming off a season where they were not very accurate and didn't protect the quarterback very well and didn't get the ball out quickly, I think this was a nice sign to see that, especially in that first drive where you go, okay, they sort of have it maybe scripted when they come out here. This is what we're going to do, go down the field. And they executed it, scored a touchdown right away. I thought it was encouraging.
I mean, he started 10 for 12. His 13th pass was that pick, but that first drive, Andy just talked about 5 for 5 completions for 17, 18, 12, and 14 on that drive. And some of those were yards after the catch, but I thought he looked really composed, really, really efficient. And you could kind of tell the difference, I thought, between him and some of the other quarterbacks who have a little bit less experience out there. But he obviously had the top wideouts, Quayshawn Brown, Takai Heath, Aiden Green, the tight ends I'm sure we're going to get to in a sec. But I thought Grunkemeyer was really poised, kind of exactly what you expected from him, just kind of a little bit head, shoulders above the other guys.
And on the other side, it was Bryce Baker who led for the team in white. How do you feel about the quarterback depth after you saw the others play on Sunday?
I do think there's a significant drop-off behind Grunkemeyer. I just think from an advanced passing standpoint, I think Hune has a high ceiling as a passer, but he's only a true freshman who, like Andy said, is supposed to still be in high school. I thought Baker looked athletic, not very efficient. It took him 27 attempts to get to 140 passing yards. That's 5.2 yards per attempt. That would have ranked dead last of any starter in college football last year. So I think he's got a ways to go, but you don't want to judge it too much in the spring game because you've got the starting group is mixed up amongst both teams. I don't think he had quite as good a group around him as Grunkemeyer did, obviously. So I think there's plenty of physical talent there. But I would be floored if anybody other than Grunkemeyer was a starting quarterback this year.
Yeah, me too. I think Baker made some things happen. He had the lesser team that he was out there working with, but I thought he moved well. You look at 43 yards and gains on rushes. We say they don't really have a quarterback like Drones that moves like that. I think Baker moved pretty well, and got that touchdown at the end. Cam Sparks made a pretty nice catch on a ball near the goal line. So I thought did pretty well given the situation. I do think Grunkemeyer is the clear one on this team, but again, I think the quarterback room as a whole just feels like it's in a better shape than maybe it's been in the last couple of years.
Yeah, I agree. I thought Baker, a lot of his stuff, it seemed like were short stuff checkdowns a lot of the time, and that will happen when like Kamari Copeland is on the other defensive line. He had that. The ball, I think it was Jerichus Hairston who had it was like a 32-yard gain. But outside of that, a lot of just kind of short stuff. I thought you could tell that he's a little bit less composed than Grunkemeyer, and I think that's the difference between a guy who was the starter for Penn State for the back half of the season and a guy who's coming off of a redshirt year and has not truly played. So I agree with what Chris said, that I think a lot of people see Baker scramble a little bit and go, oh, well, he can move, and he can, but he was also much less efficient. I mean, he threw for 140 yards on 27 passes. Grunkemeyer threw for 136 on 17, and they basically had the same number of yards of passes of 10 plus yards. So that kind of, I think, tells the story.
Yeah, I think what most people have to remember is what we've grown up knowing is what Virginia Tech is looking for in a quarterback over the years. We have to forget all of that. This is a completely different staff, completely different offensive scheme, and they're looking for something completely different at the quarterback position now. So I do think Baker's a good runner, and I think he's got potential as a passer for sure. But they are going to start their best passer without question, and like he would have to literally not be able to move at all for like him to not start and for them to start the running quarterback. I think
Grunkemeyer,
yeah, exactly. So I just think we're gonna have to retool our thinking a little bit in terms of how we view quarterback prospects these days, because it's just a different group of coaches and a different system.
I thought Grunkemeyer actually moved okay. I mean, he scrambled twice, I think, and he picked up 7 yards one time. Like his escapability was okay.
Yeah, you're just not going to be running a bunch of options with.
Yeah,
him.
but that's not, to your point, that's not what this offense is going to be.
Right.
It's going to be a pass. I mean, not pass first, I shouldn't say, but they want an accurate, efficient passer in there, a guy who's going to be very accurate through the air.
And something we saw throughout was the heavy involvement of the tight ends in the offense, including Penn State transfer Luke Reynolds. Is that something you think is going to translate to the regular season?
What were the stats? 17 catches?
17 for 205 from the tight ends.
Yeah, so
across 5 tight ends.
Right. And I think I said a couple of podcasts ago that I think Luke Reynolds is going to be the third leading receiver on this team, and I might be refining that prediction a little bit.
Might be underselling it.
Yeah, might be underselling it. I do think the tight ends are going to play a substantial role. You know, Andy, you've been writing your your athlon preview this week with your depth chart, and you list 3 tight ends in 3 wide receivers in the starting lineup. But it would not shock me a bit if the first play from scrimmage this year, Virginia Tech puts 2 tight ends on the field with 2 wide receivers, right?
Yeah, I think a big part of that is Reynolds feels like a receiver out there.
Yeah, he does.
And that's what we talked to him afterwards. And he was a quarterback in high school. His senior year, he played tight end, but he's like, it was pretty much a receiver spot. You were split out wide. You weren't doing a lot of the hand on the ground tight end stuff. And if they don't have a slot receiver or looking for a bigger receiver, I think right now it's Takai Heath in the slot. He's not a big guy. If you're looking for that matchup there, I think Reynolds has that ability, and he showed pretty soft hands when he's out there and an ability to get down the field and get open. I know it never really clicked for him at Penn State, and Penn State fans are very eager to mention that fact whenever I bring up Luke Reynolds on Twitter. But sometimes it just takes people a while till it makes sense to them in college, and he seems to have a pretty good rapport with Grunkemeyer, even though last year Grunkemeyer came in and Reynolds' stats really dropped off. He wasn't playing as much by the end of the year, and his receiving stats weren't great. They seem to have hit it off this year. They look sharp in that game. In my 5 thoughts, I pointed out the tight end usage of the last couple years. And last year was the lowest production for Penn State tight ends. It was 623 yards. And that was still more than any year that Virginia Tech had. And over that 4-year period, the touchdown total difference was 47-7. Or 46-7. Now you have Tyler Warren as your tight end. Obviously, you're going to feature him and throw to him all the time. But 46-7 is a pretty stark difference when you get down there in the red zone. You look at last year, 226 yards from the tight ends for the season, receiving yards for Virginia Tech. They just didn't use them. Benji Gasnell, who I think is pretty good passing option out there, was almost never thrown to last year. The only real catch I remember was that one at NC State, and of course it was a big one to get a first down on I think it was a 3rd down play. Yeah, it just feels like a position that has not been used the last couple of years. And I look at this room and I feel like it's as good as it's been since, James Mitchell, Dalton Keene, where they had those options and kind of variety of talents. I think Reynolds could be more of a receiving guy. Benji Gosnell, Harrison St. Germain, maybe more on the line guys. Jarikus Hairston's, doing a lot of different stuff. He was almost like an H-back at times last year. So you have options there. The coordinator is the tight ends coach, so I think that probably helps that they're not going to be forgotten in this offense. I think it's going to be a big part.
I think the main thing what we have to remember about Reynolds is, like you said, Andy, he was a quarterback most of his high school career. He didn't move away from the quarterback position until he was a senior year in high school, so he was still even though he was ranked #1 tight end prospect in the country, he'd still barely play the position when he got to Penn State, and then they didn't redshirt him. They played him as a true freshman. So his development was always going to be a little bit behind, even though he was a highly ranked recruit. And like I wrote when he signed, Virginia Tech's going to be getting him when he's just starting to peak. And that's exactly what it looks like. I mean, his performance on Saturday was probably as good a receiving performance as we've seen from anyone in the spring game.
Well, I asked Franklin about the tight ends afterwards, and he very quickly is like, yes, they did fine. That was just sort of the way that the game went. But he's like, but we've got to get everybody involved, receivers and running backs. It's like, do you think he's a little sensitive about it because the way Penn State finished out, but they just never threw to receivers?
The playoff game where they didn't complete a pass to the receiver?
It's like I get it. The question is about the tight ends. Just talk about the tight ends in that situation. He was very quick to pivot to say, hey, we're not just going to throw it to the tight ends. Other guys are going to get involved.
Yeah,
too.
He doesn't want his receivers he's recruiting to read him saying,
true.
yeah, we're going to throw it to the tight ends a bunch. Our receivers don't really matter.
Grunkemeyer targeted Reynolds 5 times, 5 completions, 17, 18, 12 yards. That was on the first drive, and then 1 for 15 and 1 for 7. And we saw it with the spin move he put on Clemson in the pinstripe ball. I mean, he just moves very well. But the other part of it is like Benji Gosnell had 5 catches for 34 yards. Jarikus Hairston had 4 catches for 58 yards. Like there are a number of tight ends. Harrison St. Germain 2 for 29. Like feels like this is a deep room where you've got a variety of skill sets, and like if you don't feel comfortable with a guy like Takai Heath, who he feels like the third receiver, honestly, behind Green and Brown. But it's like if you'd rather have a tight end or 2 on the field that are more reliable,
well, it's like what do you want in the slot? Small and shifty, or a big guy that can maybe go up over a linebacker and make a catch down the middle of the field?
Yeah. I mean, it's just hard to imagine one of those small receivers actually lined up on the outside very often. So
I think Quayshawn, I could see that.
He could do it some, yeah.
Yeah, I don't think he's a guy that can only be in the slot. I think he can be effective in the slot. I think he move him around so they can't keep tabs on him the whole time. But it wouldn't shock me if he was out wide.
We're looking forward to seeing what the offense will provide in the fall. We'll have more takeaways from the spring game, but let's hear from our sponsor, Christine Shepard. This episode of the Tech Sideline podcast is presented by Christine Shepard, your real estate expert for the Richmond area. A top producer in Richmond's real estate market, Christine brings 30 years of residential interior design expertise and a trusted network of professionals to every client relationship. Backed by Joyner Fine Properties, a locally owned brokerage with a 50-year reputation of excellence, Christine pairs design vision with market insight to help clients see the true potential in every home. With a client-first approach, she makes the buying and selling process seamless, rewarding, and deeply personal. Ready to find your safe place to fall at the end of the day? Contact Christine today. Call 804-306-3127. All right, well, let's continue the conversation about the spring game, starting by merging the defense and the offense, which is that the defense had 10 sacks. Now, that was, of course, with James Franklin blowing the whistle on the plays. How do you think the defensive line performed, but also the quarterbacks responded to said pressure?
I mean, I thought they did fine, but you just got to realize that Tech has been missing so many offensive linemen this spring, and we're again, probably missing their best offensive tackle in this spring game, and the group was split up amongst the maroon team and the white team. So it's always really hard to judge the line performances in the spring game because of that. So I really don't have any takeaways from that, to be honest with you. I mean, if you guys have a brilliant take on that, have at it. But for me, it was just more about you can't judge line play in a spring game because the lines are split up so much, and you've got your head coach blowing the whistle sometimes early and sometimes maybe even too late.
Also, nearly every play is a pass.
Yeah.
So that's kind of go after the quarterback. 6 of those 10 quote unquote sacks were when Hune was in the game.
Yeah.
I think 4 snaps in a row at one point.
Sounds
something
right.
I
like that.
think it was like 2-1-2.
Okay, it was whatever.
It was like
It was
4
a
and
lot.
5.
A lot in
A short amount of
succession.
time, yeah.
And they got some guys out there. I mean, Asen Stevens was not there. He was at his sister's wedding. We were wondering where he was, and then Pry told us afterwards. But I don't feel like there's any just like head and shoulders above everybody else APR type out there. That's just gonna. I feel like they're gonna have to do it in numbers and just waves of guys coming in and being effective. So I don't know if there's like a blue chip guy that I see at those edge rushing spots. I think I would consider Copeland that on the interior. But it's gonna have to be a group effort getting after the quarterback this year rather than somebody who's putting up like 10 plus sacks or something like that.
I think the interesting thing is it came from a bunch of different guys.
Yeah. Nobody had more than like 1.5.
1.5. Abby
Mensa had 1.5.
Abby
right?
and Mensa.
Did you see the picture I put of Mensa on my
Yeah,
5 thoughts?
yeah,
He's
yeah.
like sort of chasing down Hune, and Hune looks like a child next to Mensa.
Right.
He's so big.
And
He's
Hune is a
massive
big
individual.
prototypical quarterback too. Yeah.
Yeah. Spencer, Williams, Jennings, Balance, all had 1. T-Ron Richardson had half of a sack. Abby and Mensa had 1.5. I think you're talking to Pry afterwards just about the sacks. He's like, yeah, we just feel better that we've got like at end, like we've got more guys who can rush the passer. And we've talked about Asen Stevens. He's got the lunch pail and how he kind of went from like, he kind of knows his role and just like what works best for him in terms of attacking. But I think they've got a handful of other guys too. Now we haven't seen much of Hilson. We did see Malachi Williams, but it's kind of like Abby and Dandy, I think, made some plays here and there, but it's like
Okunlola didn't even play.
Yeah.
He was
Yeah.
dressed, but he didn't play. And
Like,
I
I
don't
assume
really
when
know
he-
where he when Pry was talking afterwards. He didn't even mention him.
Yeah,
among the
I
guys,
just
so.
assumed he would be a starter since he had played. He was the most experienced guy at his previous stop.
For Athlon, I ended up putting Asen Stevens and Malachi Williams, and I think I had Hilson and Abby second team. I think Cortez Harris could have been in that conversation
Yeah, I think he
too.
could be.
but he was on the IR. as
Yeah,
Pry said.
it's just kind of a guesswork on how that's going to work. Like I said, I think a lot of guys are going to roll into those spots and then going to have to step up together.
Because they hadn't talked about Malachi Williams hardly any until really this weekend.
Yeah, I think that's the hard part. It's like they feel kind of better about the room as a whole, but it's also like, what is that rotation going to look like come September 5th?
If it's 3rd and 7 and you got to get a stop, which 2 defensive ends do you want on the field? Right?
My guess would be Asen Stevens is
and-
one, but then
and
who's
who?
the other?
Right.
Well, in the pregame, they lined up by the goal line and ran through like what I would imagine would be first team, second team, and it was a mix of the 2 teams when they're doing these drills. And I would imagine Stevens would be out there. They had Malachi Williams at end, and they had Abby on the other side at end. So I would imagine when Asen Stevens is here that he would be the other guy. But maybe that's the 1-2. I don't know. That's a group that I think I'll be doing depth chart projections this week. I think that's a group that it could look radically different in August by the time they start playing the games.
At tackle, Emmett Laws, he was hurt, so he did not play. We already know about Kamari Copeland in fall, obviously. I think Mensa, I think he's a guy that like you talk about like standout performers from the spring. I mean, it wasn't anybody that's super flashy, but like I think Mensa's a guy you can go, okay, maybe he's that 4th guy there in that room, 3rd or 4th.
Price sounded intrigued by Elijah Fall. Or
Yes.
El Hajj.
El Hajj,
That's
yes.
how Price said it,
That's
his
how-
accent. El Hajj has got a lot of potential that we got to get out. I think it's Fall and Copeland are the top 2, and then Law is probably in that 3rd spot. Then who's 4? Mensa, Adarica, Christian Evans, T-Ron Richardson's a big dude for a freshman. I don't know, but you got to have 4 or 5 ready to go on the interior because somebody always inevitably gets hurt.
Sure.
On the interior, there's just too many bodies coming in from too many different directions. They take a pounding on every play. You got to have a deep roster there, and if you don't, you could be in trouble because an injury to a key guy there, and all of a sudden we just don't have enough large individuals on the interior to hold up.
from the game as a whole, were there any other individuals who you thought really were standouts in this game?
I thought Overton looked good on those outside runs, but I'll also
He looks bigger. Like
he's
he
much
looks
big-
noticeably
much
bigger.
Yeah, much bigger.
But like not like, oh, he's like out of shape. Like no,
Right.
like he
looks
packed
like
out
a college
lot of
back.
muscle.
Like
Right.
like last year, he'd break off those runs, and you're like, please nobody hit him really hard because he looks so skinny that he's going to get hurt, right? But now he looks like a college back.
With him and Hawkins. Hawkins didn't play, but
Yeah.
Hawkins Overton.
Yeah, that's a
I
good.
like that. That's a
darn
really good
duo.
1-2 punch.
I
there.
agree. I was actually. I'll give a shout out to Polydor for a couple of those tackles on the edge.
He led the white team with 7
against
tackles.
Overton. I mean, Overton made it out to the edge, and he's 1-on-1 with Polydor, and is like, you have to make that tackle or he's gone. And Polydor was able to make the tackle, which is difficult. I mean, Miami guys couldn't tackle Overton last year. So, I think in a spring game, sometimes it can be difficult to find standouts in anyone not involved in the passing game, right? But I think the defense did a pretty good job of keeping the lid on the offense, so to speak, outside of, probably that one play to Harrison that went for 32 yards and probably the touchdown to Wiggins. But you saw enough from the running game on the outside where you're like, okay, it can be explosive, but the defense also tackled well when he got out there and prevented big plays, right? And it was kind of the same thing for the passing game. Nothing. You saw some somewhat explosive plays, but nothing too explosive that would make you worry about the defense. So overall, I thought it was pretty well balanced.
Yeah, I don't know how many standouts I would highlight there. I will say that seems like good news on Jaquez White. He went down on that first play of the second half, I believe, and it didn't look good. The trainers got out there quick, and he was down for a while. And then on the sideline, they gave him, iced it down and a knee brace and crutches. And you go, oh man, this is the last thing you want in a spring game is injuries to anyone, especially somebody who is probably your number one corner. The way Pry was talking about him afterwards, he's like a physical guy, kind of like corners that they used to have here that we haven't had in a while. It's like, oh, that's high praise, especially when you got a former guy that's about to be the number 10 pick in the NFL draft coming up here in Mansour Delane. He tweeted afterwards that everything's all right. I'm not taking that as medical opinion that everything is all right, but that's better than the alternative of saying, oh, no, we're going to go in for tests or whatever.
Next thing you know, he's posting a picture of himself in his surgery bed.
Right. Yeah. That's always just like the thumbs up.
Yeah.
And then it's like, oh, no, that's got to be horrible. But it seems like perhaps they avoided disaster there. And, they need him out there. I mean, he brought them in there from Troy to be a top guy at the cornerbacks. I think he can be. I'm probably looking at him, IBM, probably at the nickel, Josh Clark, possibility. Kenny Wosley's in there, I think, too, is a possibility. I think there's a deeper group of cornerbacks, but if your number one guy like that gets hurt in the spring game, second half of the spring game, it's like, oh, man, how many snaps do these guys need? Hopefully they avoided disaster there.
Yeah. I think Clark and Polydor both interested me because this is Clark's first real live action. I mean, outside of some scrimmages behind the scenes, since
he's tall too.
He got hurt.
Yeah, he's
we
long,
talked to him
very
the other
lengthy.
day. He's
Yeah.
pretty tall.
Yeah, but I mean, he's coming off of a really bad injury. And Pry was asked about him and said, coming off that injury, you can be bashful, and he's not. He's kind of full steam ahead. And I asked him about Polydor, and I thought this answer was pretty interesting. He said the moments aren't too big for him. He just has to learn the defense. A lot of these guys come out of high school and they just play on their abilities. They weren't asked to play in a structure with specific assignments and having to execute. And so that's just part of the learning curve. You can't just rely on your skills. You got to play in the framework and kind of let the plays come to you when needed. And I think you kind of saw that a little bit with Polydor, just open field tackle here and there.
Yeah, he's a guy who I think 100% most years in the past would be on the field. But these days with the portal, you don't have to do that. You can go out and get Jaquez White, and you can go out and get Cam Chadwick, and then you can potentially redshirt Polydor. But I could see him playing because I think he's a very talented player.
Polydor is interesting, but it's like, how many guys deep do you have to get before you would consider? It's like White, IBM, Clark, Chadwick, Wosley. Thomas Williams is back. His arm is sling, but he's back. I mean, that's 6 guys.
Yeah.
And before you would start talking about true freshmen like that.
And even if you just considered IBM only a nickel and not an outside corner at all, still 5 others.
And, JoJo Krim missed the spring,
Right.
but he was encouraging last
He
year.
was.
And he's a guy who, I guess he has a red shirt at his disposal. He didn't red shirt last year, right?
No.
Correct.
Okay.
Right.
So maybe that could be a second year red shirt in that situation.
See it
But I
occasionally.
think you've got some options there in terms of how you work with those cornerbacks. Last year they didn't have enough. They just had to roll with what they had. It's like IBM, Thomas Williams, you guys are never coming off the field because they don't have anybody else to put in the game. This year they could actually roll some guys in there.
Yeah, Krim, Chadwick, and Williams were all out, missed the spring game.
Right.
So hopefully, we saw Williams the other day with his arm in a sling, and Krim's been out. So it's like, I think that kind of makes the white news even more impactful. But
they moved Knowledge Harrell over to safety.
But that's right. They feel so good about corner. Yeah.
yeah.
Well, as we close out our discussion on the spring game itself, were there any takeaways from the kicking competitions being included or anything else in the game?
The Love dynasty continues. Will Love looks pretty good to the point where it's like, could he even be the punter this year? Is he going to be in that competition? I don't know. They brought in the guy from Marshall to do that, but he had 48 and 44 yards in the game that he made. No, there's no rush coming at him.
Will Love?
Yeah.
Yeah, 48-44.
So, those are not insignificant field goals. And he booted them with a lot of confidence. It looks like whatever they're doing in the Love family, they know how to kick
Well,
the
and
ball.
you wrote about it in the end of your 5 thoughts, just like Virginia Tech's kicking, how good it's been in like the last
It's
15
insane
years.
how good it's been. It was Joey Sly, Brian Johnson, John Parker Roma for that 1 year. And then there was like one bad year. It was John Love's first year.
Yeah, and you remember
Where it was,
you remember the Coastal Carolina
Yeah.
kid?
what
I'm
was
forgetting
name?
I'm blanking on his name.
And he had a good story for a while, and then kind of went south. And then the end of the year,
with Love.
and John Love had a first down before he made a field goal. 'Cause They ran that fake against Liberty. But then the last 3 years, he's an 84% kicker, field goal kicker. That's a good run there. And then if you can get Will Love for another 4 years after this, that's quite a legacy of kickers that you have going there.
It sure is, man. I do think he'll most likely red shirt, but you got to remember that he was the number 1 ranked kicker coming out of high school, right? I don't know how you rank kickers. It's not like there's somebody that goes around the country and evaluates all of them.
Chris Saylor kicking. They have him in those kicking camps all the time. They got all sorts of rankings and times that you hang time and all that stuff. They have it down to a science.
Yeah, so I think Virginia Tech's in pretty darn good shape.
Yeah, but both the Love brothers went 3 for 4. Both of them went 2 for 2, so 4 for 4 total. And John made a 27-yarder in the game. Will made 48 and 44, as Andy said. And Will Love punted. Nathan Totten is the Marshall punter. Like that would be interesting. It seems like Totten would be the guy, considering he was so good at Marshall last year. But I think Will Love's a good option if you need him. I thought you were going to honestly start this segment though by mentioning the halftime punting competition with the students.
One of the best additions they've made to the spring game, and they should honestly, if they could figure out a way to like get a jugs machine out there during actual games, they should do that during actual games. It was that entertaining watching them stumble around. One guy caught it,
yes,
and he got season tickets, I think, because of that. But a couple of them, God bless those kids going out there and putting those are tough. It's up there and it's spinning. Yeah,
so
they were like
dresses
dress
with like no shoes on.
One girl bit it pretty hard.
Yes.
She like hit her shoulder into the ground, but I don't know how many beverages were behind that beforehand.
That's how I would pick the candidates. I would go through the tailgating lots before and choose the ones that seem like they're acting the most
They should make them like shoot a beer beforehand or something like that, then punt it.
And then spin around on a bat. Yeah.
The bat's not even necessary. Just have them chug a beer and then try to catch it. They'll probably fall anyway.
Yeah,
that was entertaining. Kudos to the game day staff putting that together. That was highly entertaining.
Do we?
And then Franklin was out there.
Franklin was like helping.
He
helped them
immediately
up.
out there, like high five on everyone. He was very interested in that whole competition. I give him credit there.
Did the winning team get anything special? Any idea?
I don't think
So
so.
I've got a buddy.
know.
I've got a buddy who was on the team in the early to mid '90s, and the '94 spring game they didn't have enough bodies. God, I had a lot of guys hurt, so he had to play for both teams as like a safety. And so back then they'd give the winning team a steak dinner, and they'd give the losing team hot dogs. So he played on both teams. I'm like, "What meal did you get?" He goes, "Hot dogs." I'm like, "I don't think that's fair."
He should
No.
get steak and
Yeah.
hot dogs.
Right?
Pull double duty.
But
Yeah, I don't know that the winning team got anything.
just bragging rights, I guess.
Well, that was what the spring game was like, but as we touch on some other topics, since the last podcast, a couple of recruits were picked up for Virginia Tech football. Chris, do you have any thoughts on Xavier Perkins or Joseph Buchanan, both defensive line or edge rushers?
They're clearly focusing on defensive linemen because all 4 of their commits so far are defensive linemen. They're also clearly focusing on Maryland because 3 of them are from Maryland, and I think they've got a bunch of other guys from Maryland who've scheduled official visits.
Hey, this is. I feel like this is just right up your alley, given how much you have written. I feel like it's like time, like once a football season, it's like, why is Tech recruiting so many guys from Maryland? How good is the talent in Maryland? It's like,
well, they've surpassed Virginia in NFL talent despite
like,
having
do I need to keep beating that drum?
Right, despite having a much smaller population. I mean, they're just machines up there at developing football players, and that was a big part of Penn State's success under James Franklin was recruiting Maryland players, and so I'm happy to see that at Virginia Tech. I expected to see it, but definitely something I'm happy about it. And this is a staff that is going to recruit from the inside out. They're going to try to. I mean, football games are still won in the trenches. No matter how much you throw the ball, they're still won in the trenches, and that's where Virginia Tech wants to have the advantage each and every time out.
I mean, this was a big recruiting weekend as a whole.
Over 100 guys that were there, I believe.
Yeah, as spring games usually are. So usually supplies Chris, I think, with a bit of recruiting content for the next week or 2. And then Riley, we're going to get into like the heat of the recruiting period where guys are going to commit and take visits in May, June, whatnot. So this is interesting. This is like the first real weekend like James Franklin and his staff have had an opportunity to like showcase, hey, this is what we're doing with our program. So interested to kind of see what the reviews are like. Although these are high school recruits at the end of the day, and they say the same stuff. Yeah, I had a great time.
Yeah, they all kind of do the same thing after every interview. But
I enjoyed the pregame show.
yeah, right.
Very eventful.
It was cool.
So a couple of recruits picked up there, and as we close out this podcast, let's go over to the Diamond, starting with baseball, who won Game 1 against Georgia Tech, dropped Game 2, and then yesterday a walk-off home run from Hudson Luderman to take the series against the Yellow Jackets. That turned into an eventful weekend.
It turned great. I went to the game on Friday night, and I sat in the first row right behind home plate. And I had the Braves game on my phone sitting right there in the back of the netting. So I'm watching the Braves beat the Phillies 9-0, and I'm watching Virginia Tech smoke Pitt. So it was a good night of baseball for me. And I went to about half the game on Saturday before I went to meet friends. Tech got good starting pitching this weekend. Bullpen still a little bit questionable. The game Friday night was a little bit closer than an 11-6 game normally is because of the way it ended.
9 runs in the 4th.
Right.
And then they kind of took their foot off the gas a little bit.
Right. And then that ninth inning was scary. Even the last out was scary because the bases were loaded. And then of course, the bullpen blew the lead on Saturday, but and again on Sunday actually. But then Tech still managed to walk it off. So there's just not great pitching depth there. But they won a series. They're 9-12 in the ACC. The RPI is really good.
Top 50.
Yeah, they're still like top 5 in strength of schedule this year. It's like they're a better baseball team than their record indicates because I think this is probably the deepest the ACC's ever been. I don't know that there's like a top team in the ACC, but there's not a bad team in the ACC this year, which you generally see in every league. There's 1 or 2 teams down at the bottom when you're like, well, they're just bad, and that's not the case this year.
Yeah, I thought. I mean, they were playing really well, and then they go down yesterday, and it's like, or the game was tied, and it's like, oh man, how are they going to kind of lose this one? I thought the resilience they showed. Petrich was really good. Luderman was really good. And Chef told our Dylan Teft after the game, and I thought it's interesting. Like on the surface, he said, I feel like we're in a pretty good spot still, like despite everything, and it's weird when you think about it on the surface, but then when you actually look at it, it's like they've got upcoming weekends against like NC State and Cal, and it's like these are winnable series coming up. They can win like the next series or 2. They put themselves in position potentially, depending on what they do at the ACC tournament. At the same time, they got a pretty good VCU team in the midweek in Richmond on Tuesday. That team just beat UVA last week. So I think they show flashes here and there, and you see the bats, and I thought was it Grimm? I thought Grimm and Stig were both pretty good this weekend.
Well, Renfro
was great on Friday.
I
First
thought
Friday
he made
starting a
himself
while.
some money. I sat right behind home plate, and he's got pretty good velocity, but the ball was moving well for him on Friday, and so he probably helped himself out for the draft a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, it seemed like some of those pitchers did a really good job of just kind of settling in and finding their stuff, but you gotta. It's baseball, and consistency is very, very difficult. And interested to see what happens this week because they're back at home after going to Richmond.
The Mets are consistent right now.
Yeah,
11 in a row. Do you know how hard
losses.
that is to lose 11 baseball games?
I watched that game yesterday against the Cubs. That was it came down to the wire too.
I'm all torn up inside about it.
I saw a graphic that showed the last time every team has lost 10 straight games or more, and it showed the years on the thing. And everybody's kind of done it somewhat recently. I think a long time for the Blue Jays, Cardinals, and the Yankees are 1913 since they've lost 10 straight. So it's been a minute. And the other New York team currently on a 10 plus at 11.
It's 11 now, yep.
Well, as David alluded to, the schedule for baseball, VCU on the road on Tuesday and then hosting NC State this weekend. But we go over to softball, where they had some uncharacteristic losses in game 2 and 3 against Georgia Tech. And they will end up trying to bounce back this week, hosting Liberty and then UNC.
Their Saturday game against Georgia Tech was crazy because what did Georgia Tech use, like 7 pitchers? And none of them threw more than like 25 or 30 pitches or something like that. So you just see a different arm angle, different speed every single inning you go out there. And I guess you can't do that every game, but it can make it difficult to adjust to because a lot of times you do your most damage against a pitcher the second time through or whatever. And they didn't get to a second time through with any of those pitchers on Saturday. So that was an interesting strategy by Georgia Tech.
Different approach from Virginia Tech, where I thought Georgia Tech just did a really good job of settling in, and the Hokies trailed in every single game this weekend. They bounced back on Friday and played really well to come from behind, but between Saturday, Sunday, they had a lot of base runners and didn't quite execute with runners in scoring position. I think they had the bases loaded like 2 or 3 different times in Sunday's game alone. The opportunities are there, and this is really like their first series setback since Duke, I think, which was over a month ago. So we're talking about a pretty long time. Interested to see kind of how they respond because they've been playing really well as of late.
So if you want more details, make sure to go to techsideline.com as well. Dylan Teft has all the articles for baseball, put up some great stuff for the series win they had against Pitt this weekend, and then Sam Mostow covering it for softball side of things as well. With that, there is news that Bree Warren was denied immediate eligibility for softball. If you want more information there, go ahead and check that article out by Sam as well. Really well done. But speaking of techsideline.com, what can we expect coming up shortly?
I'm writing my article on the spring game today. I couldn't come up with any new angles yesterday to examine the spring game after reading those guys' articles, so I thought about it for a little while, and last night I decided how I was going to approach it. I'm going to look at the quarterbacks from a yards per attempt standpoint, and so that'll be out for me later today.
You're right about the skydiver?
No,
nobody's done that yet. Nobody's taken an angle on that
I
yet.
actually, like I said, I have a different perspective on the skydiving, so maybe I could include that as well.
Yeah, I'm going to try to project a depth chart here over the next couple of days, go offense, defense. I've been hesitant to do that until we saw a bit more. I think I have a better idea and sort of piece it together for Athlon, which fingers crossed that it's right. I mean, you take a couple guesses at a certain spots and they sort of box you in because you list 11 defenders instead of being able to list a nickel, and I think that would open up some more possibilities. So I think I'll have more freedom on Tech Sideline to do it how I want.
Yep.
But yeah, look for that this week, and we'll go from there.
Been a lot of baseball, softball for us. Obviously, Nick's going to talk about the audio video. This is kind of like the end of the busy season for me.
It'll be a quiet NFL draft weekend too. I can't imagine anybody getting taken.
No, I'm gonna take a couple days and just breathe a little bit because it's been from July we go to ACC kickoff until basketball season ends. Bleeds right into spring football. Now the spring game's over with, and we'll have a ton of spring game stuff and recruiting, I'm sure. But Now it's an opportunity. Now it's just baseball, softball left.
I'm going to the Braves and George Strait next week. I'm ready to get out
That'll
of
be
here for a
awesome.
while.
Weekend right
You
there.
guys are talking way too confidently as though some major news isn't going to drop. Now, just
That-
when you,
yeah,
just
that's
when
a
you
good
talk
point.
about like, man, I'm going to retire forever. I'm 2 days away from my pet. Like haven't you seen these Lethal Weapon, second Lethal Weapon reference on the show? Like that's when it happens. The stuff happens right when you let your guard down. So
Well, we also covered the Board of Visitors meeting. We did a podcast on that. Should we talk quickly about Danny White promotion
Oh, yeah.
and how that relates to the Hockey Club's going to have a new head?
Yeah. So it sounds like Danny White is basically replacing John Boleyn, who's retiring. And then they basically came out and said, well, we've decided that it's probably best for the Hockey Club to have its own dedicated full-time fundraiser at its head. And I'm like, really, nobody's ever suggested that before. I mean, how could you possibly come to that conclusion? But so now Virginia Tech's going to conduct a search for a new head of the Hockey Club. I think the committee's driving it. I do think, Witt's going to be on that committee, but he was also on the committee that selected Franklin, right? And we all know who drove that bus. But yeah, so some of the changes that I've been wanting for quite a while. God, it was a great Friday because I heard that morning. I went back and watched the interviews from Thursday that morning, and Franklin's like, yeah, we're not going to the weight room at halftime anymore because we lose an extra 4 or 5 minutes. Again, that's something I've been complaining about for like 3 years. And it's amazing to get two of my biggest complaints.
Did you have a good
fixed on the same
cheeseburger
day.
this
everything's
weekend?
coming
I had
up
a
Chris
Sharky's-
Coleman this spring.
I know, it's going great. I had a Blacksburger on Saturday at Sharky's while I was watching the Tottenham Brighton game before the spring
I'm
game.
sorry.
Yeah, it was a terrible ending, but
Hey, at least,
Not everything.
Hey,
The Braves are in first place at least for you.
swept the Phillies for the first and in Philly for the first time since 2016. Everything's going. Haven't lost a series.
And we can enjoy Arsenal losing.
Yes, we can. We can all enjoy that.
Well, let's go over to Nick for the audio video with everything going so well.
Yeah, we've got Talk with Teal obviously this week. We'll have a Friday Q&A. Not really sure what else we'll have unless, like Andy said, big news drops. My only story really from the weekend was my family always tailgates at the base of the hill of President Sand's house or the President House in the Duck Pond lot. And we're tailgating there at probably 11:30 or whatever. And sure enough, Tim Sands comes walking down, and he's heading kind of towards the end, but he's walking. And one of my friends just yells, "Dr. Sands, can I get a picture?" And he comes over, and he came over and tailgated with us for about 10 to 15 minutes. It was great, and just started talking. Very nice guy. Obviously, he's a politician man. He's an academia man, so but he's very good at it. And it was just I was just sitting there looking, and my parents who graduated in the early 90s and never in their wildest dreams did they think they'd be tailgating with the president of the university at some point. So that was pretty cool for them.
Well, Nick, terrible salesmanship here. You mentioned the Bud Foster podcast.
Oh, well,
was great.
yeah,
that was
everybody's
great
seen
last
that one.
week.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
know, but if you
Everybody's
haven't
going
yet, then the numbers are great. So
We
I
still
feel
have
a lot
not.
of people have.
I don't
Go
think we've
listen to that. That was
decided
good.
fully. I know Will's leaning towards a name at the moment. I'm not going to spoil that. That's his thunder. But yeah, it was fantastic. And if you love Virginia Tech football in its heyday, then yeah, you're gonna love it. So
I hung out
it's
with
awesome.
I hung out with Bud for about 2.5 to 3 hours on Saturday morning too, while he was signing at the cigar shop, and he sold almost all of the remainder of the cigars that he had left over.
Bud Foster, who my class today will do a mock news conference with over at Merriman. So Bud's making the rounds. He's all over the place.
Yep,
I think he's got a lot of open time. I think he enjoys coming back and talking to media and stuff like that. You could tell on the podcast that he just likes talking about guys from the past.
Watching him interact
great
with
stories.
Watching him interact with the fans that come into the cigar shop to either buy his cigars or get autographs or both is incredible. Like, he's just such a natural. And a lot of people like that. You have to prod them with questions to get them to open it up, and he just starts talking. Like just saying
can
things
tell
that
on the
I would
podcast.
not have expected him to say stuff like this, like some of this information he's talking about with the coaching search to like these random people he's never met before. But he's just a
Hey,
a very
the
open
NDAs are
guy.
over at this point.
Yeah,
There's no
that's
reason to
right.
hold back. Like, I think it's great to be a football coach. It must be really nice to be an ex-football coach where like you don't have that stress anymore, but you still have that fame that is associated with it. And I think Bud sort of revels in it. I think he likes it. He's a man of the people, obviously, and that's just a really good role for him.
Yep.
Is he going to be an angry Bud Foster
No,
today
I
for the
haven't
press
given him any
conference?
sort of direction on this thing. I think when Bill Roth did this for his class a long time ago, and he brought in Billy Height.
Oh God.
And he told Billy to come in like ticked off. And like some kid had a Virginia Tech hat on, and Billy comes in, he's like, take that effing hat off or something like that. And like Bill said, to get him prepared for the moment, he's like, think of the worst loss that you guys had. So he's thinking of 2007 BC.
God.
So imagine Billy Height coming in thinking that way, being angry in front of a bunch of students, because that's part of it. Is like, you are not a fan of the team when you're in there. You're asking questions as a neutral observer. So that's how he treated it, and I think it went pretty well. And maybe those students got a lesson in interviewing an angry coach.
Well, plenty going on in Blacksburg, that is for sure at this time. We appreciate you watching this episode of the Tech Sideline podcast for 42.
Yeah, sorry. I just want to build the momentum. I don't know how many videos we're going to have till then, but next, not this Saturday, but the following Saturday, David and I are going to Tennessee for Jake Lyman's wedding, the former podcast host. So
Nice.
yeah, he is getting married to his longtime high school. I think it even goes back to basically the middle school. They've known each other a long time. It's honestly, they should have been married 5 years ago while they're at Tech. But anyways, it's been a long time coming, so very excited for that. I don't know how many more chances we're going to get to talk about it, but we'll definitely put up some pictures, and we'll definitely get a TSL picture while we're down there.
Everybody gets married at their own pace, Nick. Come on. You knocked it out quick. Other people, it takes a little bit longer. Come on, now.
Well, gosh, there's so much going on that we are happy to hear. And so make sure to like the video, subscribe, and share the show with a friend if you haven't already. We'll keep coming with the podcast for you. For Chris Coleman, David Cunningham, Andy Bitter, and Nick Brown behind the scenes, I'm Riley Klaus saying so long for now.